Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sheffield. Welcome to Up in the Gods, really, at Bramall Lane. You can see the pitch down there, and you can see also from the scoreline, Norwich City 1, Sheffield United 1. Norwich halting a run of 4 consecutive victories for Sheffield United and Chris Wilder's side, who, as worth pointing out, really at the start, beat Stoke City, who were until recently a poor run of form, admittedly, but have been challenging towards the top 2 of this division. They beat them 4-0 on Saturday, albeit with 8 changes, albeit with lots of injury and illness in the camp. For Norwich City to come here at this stage with Chris Wilder beginning to take this club on an upward trajectory and to walk away with a point, I think in any context would have been positive and productive. To do it having been depleted, wounded, battle hardened, is pretty good. And I think there's been many points this season where we've been disappointed or left frustrated by Norwich City. I think tonight is one where a lot of people should feel quite proud of the efforts that they've put in as a collective. Hard work, the endeavour, the effort. I think if this game would have been played 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think at 1-0 down, Norwich City would have collapsed, would have folded, and would have lost this game probably by 2 or 3 definitely. But tonight they hung in there, they kept going, they showed, as I said, endeavour, hard work, graft, even in adversity. It's, I said in a few of my verdicts earlier on this season, if you kind of blew on Norwich City with any kind of adversity, they would fold. Well, tonight they've had adversity of all sorts in terms of senior players either missing or going off. Sheffield United missing some really big chances, and then even had a chance to win it at the end, Norwich City. So I think all in all, I stand here today going, that's a really good point in really difficult circumstances. I think everyone of a Norwich City persuasion will feel that way. I think probably after the game, and certainly sense this from Philippe Clement speaking to Radio Norfolk's Chris Gorham after the game, I think there's a frustration about that opportunity they had late on and what that could have meant in terms of 3 points in their current situation. And it would have been an absolute mammoth victory. And we'll come on to the game in a moment. Had Forson have buried that opportunity and had Michael Cooper not have made a really, really good save, as it is, I've seen it back. But I think a point on reflection of how the game transpired, probably fair enough from both sides. And I think given the circumstances of where both clubs are, I think they will probably take that, if I'm being honest. More so Norwich City, because it is another baby step in the direction that they want to go on under Philippe Clement, that sort of trend that we're seeing, that upward trend over his first 5 games in charge. It's a point a game. As I said on Saturday, that's not going to be enough to keep them in the division, but it is signs that they are moving in the right direction. You never have performance levels that just go shooting up. It just doesn't happen. It needs to be excellent as they turn on a big thing behind me. Hopefully you can still hear me. It's going to be incremental. It's going to be, I'm going to head in this direction, and hopefully we will get away from the sound. It's going to have to be incremental. It's going to have to be gradual. It's going to have to be something that is steady and is, not linear. I think we see often, and we consider improvement in football as something that is linear and something that happens overnight. That is very rarely the case, seldom the case. I'm going to park here and hope that noise is not too bad. We kind of feel that that's something that happens with teams, that they get better and they get better quickly. That's not always the case. And I think what we're having to see as a team in terms of confidence, in terms of structure, in terms of identity, in terms of tactical belief, it's that, by the way, making the noise, having to see that be repaired and rebuilt slowly. And I think we're seeing Philippe Clement do a good job at that. It's a simplification of what they do. You look at how they defended tonight. I thought they were vulnerable in moments, but generally as a team, they were much more solid, much more together as a team, much more collective. Players who are willing to do the hard yards and tackle and run and head and put their body on the line for this team. And I think we're beginning to see that collective spirit now come out, which is really positive compared to where we were just a few weeks ago with this Norwich City side. Let's run through the game then. Norwich City made 3 changes. Obviously, no Harry Darling. Forson dropped out for Jovan Makama. Jakov Medic got the start ahead of Harry Darling. And it was Marcondes out for Jacob Wright in that number 10 position. Those changes felt to me a reflection of probably what the game was going to demand and what it was going to dictate. And that was a very physical, very direct, very athletic Sheffield United team, as you come to expect with Chris Wilder, full of intensity, full of running, full of intent. Moved the ball from back to front very quickly, which is a compliment, by the way. And it can be really challenging when they get on top of you and they get around you, because I think we see it with Sheffield United and Chris Wilder's teams. they kind of have three ways to hurt you. They go through you, they go around you, and they're quite happy to go over you if those 2 points aren't there. So the pressing had to be good. It was. The structure had to be good. It was. But even then, Sheffield United created opportunities. And the way the game flowed, I felt it started off pretty balanced. Then Norwich City began to get an ascendancy. I thought they had a really good 20-minute spell in the first half. Josh Sargent had an acrobatic overhead kick cleared off the line. Fisher had a shot. McLean had a shot. I think Maatsen had one as well. They had opportunities to take the lead here and probably just lacked that clinical edge in the penalty area. In truth, there was some really good defending from Sheffield United as well. Then I thought the game swung again back in Sheffield United's favour. Danny Ings had a couple of glorious opportunities. The best one coming from a corner, which went over everyone in a yellow and green shirt, including Vladan Kovacevic, who was in absolute no man's land. If Danny Ings gets it on header, if he gets it on target, and gets his header down, then he put Sheffield United ahead and would have been able to head it into the back of the net. He just kind of stretching and backpedaling, gets his head on it, and it goes over the bar. There's another opportunity as well, a turnover. Sheffield United, it felt to me, were targeting and looking to get down Norwich City's left-hand side, where there was Tony Springett and there was Jakov Medic, and I think they did that at very different points. And that was where one of the Danny Ings opportunities came from. Squared, I think it was Sariki on the right, put the ball in, and there was Danny Ings on the follow-up to volley over. So that was the first half. Norwich, of course, later on lost Josh Sargent, who was defending a set piece. Ball comes in. It's a pretty innocuous challenge in terms of Tom Cannon and Sargent going for the ball. It's one of those horrible ones where he hasn't put his body out to kind of cushion the fall. It looked like he was unconscious as he hit the floor and kind of skidded along. It looked a really concerning one. There was concern for him on the pitch. The players kind of waving on the physios. Felt like it took a while for him to sit up and then stand up. When he did stand up, he looked dazed. He was kind of guided around the pitch by 2 physios. If that is concussion, which Philippe Clement said would need to be confirmed in the next 24 hours or so, what will kick in is the concussion protocol, which would almost certainly rule him out of Saturday's game against Southampton. But it would mean he would likely be back for Preston. I would suspect. These things are always quite difficult, but I think it's about 10 days that players are out for with concussion. So hopefully nothing major, and that is all it is. But obviously wish him well. It's not a nice injury. He looks really groggy, and given how influential he is for this Norwich City side, really hope that's not anything that's going to keep him out for a prolonged period of time, particularly given we're going to be talking about Mateus Christoren later on as well. And I felt that last 5 minutes, Sheffield United got on top of Norwich. Norwich were obviously down to 10 men. They began to look a little bit kind of stretched, and they were just trying to see out the half. They did that. And then the intent that Sheffield United showed at the start of the second half, I should say, just to interject there, Kenny McLean went off as well. His hip locked up in the first half. You could see it. There was one ball that he went to play, and I think played it out of play, and just kind of felt his hip, and Norwich took him off. I think given where they are in terms of injuries and the fact he wasn't running with the same kind of rhythm that we associate with Kenny McLean, it is better, particularly in the situation they are in at the moment, to take that precaution and take him off in the hope that he's going to be okay for Saturday. Palamatson and Jacob Wright started the second half in midfield together. Mark Ondes came on as the number 10. Jovan Makama pushed out front. And Mankel Forson, who come on for Josh Sargent, was on the right. Schwartau was on the left. And yeah, the same back line as well. And the goal comes from that left side from Norwich City perspective. Lovely ball from Sarike down the line into Chong. He beats his man, pushes it across, and Danny Ings is there to tap the ball into the back of the net from 1-0. And I think that was a really interesting moment because as we've seen a lot, this Norwich City team go behind in games and struggle to find the character or the personality or the wherewithal really to stand up to that. But they did. They showed endeavour. They kept going. They kept pressing. They kept moving the ball. They kept running. And there were some really nice fluid moments where the movement was good and you have players combining with their movements. One will go out, one will go in, and it presented options on the ball. I still think there are points where McLean and Maatsen in the first half dropped too deep and it becomes difficult to connect at points, but it does offer them probably a little bit more control if they lose the ball and they're not as susceptible to the counter-attack. So it's kind of the pros and cons of that. I can understand why they are so deep at this moment in time. But Norwich did look dangerous in transition. They did look dangerous when they had those opportunities to come forward. And that ultimately is where the goal came from. Norwich worked the ball to the right-hand side. Cross came in. Makama keeps it alive. He gets to the byline, pulls the ball across, and Samare in the end with the own goal, the second own goal in 3 games that has gone in Norwich City's favour. And I felt that was what they deserved in terms of the effort that they showed in very difficult adversity. You think about the 5 players who've played the most minutes this season. It was only Vladan Kovacevic who was on the pitch. Sargent, McLean, Darling, and Stacey, all either injured or, in Harry Darling's case, suspended, but was here tonight as well. To have such a youthful team on, you look at that back four, Tony Springett, second game and second start in 2 years from an Norwich City perspective. Rory McConville, who he's 20, Kellen Fisher, who's still only 21. Jacob Wright, still 20 years old. Jovan Makama, 21. Forsome when he came on. A very young side by makeup, very inexperienced side by makeup. And I think we've seen this team and these individuals kind of crumble a little bit. And they did anything but that tonight. And I think it was a really good effort against a really good side who I felt probably struggled to know how to break them down. It felt like in the closing stages, it was only really Brooks and his kind of mazy runs that down the right side where Ben Frizene sort of came in. That felt like the real sort of moments of opportunity for Sheffield United from crosses and from corners rather than anything clear cut. And it was actually Norwich in the end who had the best opportunity to win the game. Sheffield United corner that gets cleared. Norwich win a turnover on halfway, and Amankwa Forson is in through on goal. Has so much of the pitch to stride into, and it's a really difficult moment because you know in his head he is playing through the scenario and where to put the ball. Do I go right? Do I go low? Do I go high? Do I go to the left? It's all of that plays through your mind, and in the end, if you watch it back, Cooper makes a fantastic trigger movement where he makes a slight move to the right. That presents Forsome with the opportunity to think, right, the keeper's gone. He can then slot it into the other corner. He goes to it. Cooper springs back and makes a brilliant save to turn it around the post. And it was a big moment that Philippe Clement was gutted and the players were gutted and Forsome was gutted they didn't take. It would have been such a big pivotal moment for their season. My concern, if I want to use that word, is you look at the moment since Clement has come in charge. That last-minute equaliser against Oxford, the Jovan Makama miss on Saturday at Watford, that Forsome miss today. Those are moments that eventually they are going to have to turn to take points from games and to take wins from games, because that would have been such a big moment to leave here tonight, having put the effort in that they did, having covered the ground that they did, having faced the adversity that they did. It would have been tremendous to see that rewarded with a win. I don't think it would have been wholeheartedly deserved, but equally, I think if either side have nicked this, I'm not sure either could have had too much to complain about. It was quite open. There was opportunities for both sides. But yeah, that was a real shame as well. So look, I think it's a really good point. Ultimately, the bigger picture is Norwich are a point worse off. They're now 5 points. Oxford have got a point at Blackburn tonight as well. They were leading for periods of that game, so it looked like it was going to be 7 points where Norwich were behind. It was going to be 8 points. So 5 points is not insurmountable. It doesn't really mean it's changed. Portsmouth have got beaten tonight, but they've got a game in hand. So look, the aim of the game is to keep themselves in touch for January the 4th, really, where I think it will begin to hotten up then in terms of players coming back and new recruits coming in. That is the challenge, to keep ticking along and ticking over. If they can maintain this points per game rate, then I think that will probably be enough to keep them where they are, but they are going to need to win games as well. Clement knows that. Norwich know that. I think everyone out there knows that when they look at the league table. The only currency they can really afford to deal in is wins, but they've still got a huge amount of time in that second half of the season. And I think what I've liked about the last 4 games is Oxford, really good performance. QPR, really good first half performance. Watford, really, really good first half performance. Tonight, a different type of performance, but spirited and together and collective. Another good performance, and that has been systematic and the trend that we've seen under Philippe Clement so far. It hasn't been world-class renovating tactics. It's been structure, it's been stability, which we'll come on to now with the injuries, and it's been organisation. When to press, knowing when to press, how to press, backing up the press, supporting your teammate next to you when they decide to go, but covering for them when they make a mistake as well. Really, really kind of basic stuff that I think Philippe Clement has pushed and brought that kind of floor up to what is acceptable. And it means that Norwich are getting improved performances. That now needs to translate in the longer term into wins and better results. And I think if you can do that, hopefully they will be in a period in a position where they will be able to get themselves a lot closer to where that line is currently. In terms of the injuries, look, Kenny McLean, I mentioned hip. I've seen him kind of post-game. He wasn't moving too sharply, to be honest. It's been an issue that he's had for a little period of time. They're going to have to monitor that. Hopefully he's okay for Saturday. Josh Sargent, as I said, if that is concussion, it's going to be very difficult to see a situation where he features on Saturday. Most worrying of all is Matthias Christgården, who has injured his knee. It's the same one he's done at Coventry. Philippe Clement said post-game he's gone to see a specialist. That never feels like a good thing in my eyes. That feels essentially a view as to whether they need to take a surgical option, which clearly would put him under or put him out for a significant period of time if he goes under the knife with a knee concern. Norwich don't need that at this period. They don't need another player. I spoke to Callum Fisher after the game, who was really, really good today. And I think generally over the last 3 games has performed outstanding. When you think about he's been out of position, I think some of the reaction and the criticism to him, as I said with Vlad on Saturday, has been quite over the top and quite unfair. He's still a lad who's had about 60 championship appearances, still very young. He's had to play left back, he's had to play right back, he's had to, even last season, play in midfield. He does that kind of and gets on with it and is full-blooded in the way that he plays, but he's still young and still bits of his game to refine and to improve, and he knows that as well. And I spoke to him post-game, and he told me after Watford he's been dealing with a knock as well, and having to play through the pain barrier tonight. That is the level of character and effort and endeavour that Norwich City have put into getting a point here tonight, and they could have got 3. And I think, as I said, there's been so many times this season where we've been left frustrated or disappointed or angry even at the way Norwich City have performed. Not tonight. That was a really good collective effort. And to a man, I thought they all ran their socks off, worked tirelessly to get a result over the line that is so desperately needed. And of course, if you can do that against a team that have won 4 in a row, 8 changes or not, then hopefully you can do that with a Southampton team that has just won again tonight against West Brom and were 3-0 up at half-time. That's now the challenge. To go toe-to-toe with this team is one thing, to get a point is another. Can they now go back to Carrow Road and back this up? Because that would be, I think, 1 defeat in 4. 1 defeat in 5. If they could do that, it would feel like the Carrow Road corner has been turned, and it would be another excellent result against a fantastic team. We await the fallout of what some of that injury news is, because I think we're all waiting with bated breath. Norwich hope to have Jose Cordoba and hope to have Liam Gibbs back for the weekend, but of course we're without those 3 players that we mentioned earlier potentially. But also a bonus of tonight, Ben Krezene was back. Good to see him. Anis Ben Slimani, Shane Duffy on the bench as well. I think there's basically every player who has been involved in a matchday squad, with the exception of Adilusi, has played minutes since Philippe Clement come in. So that is evidence of how stretched they are getting at this moment in time as well. So there we go. A point, a well-deserved point, more positives to take. Not quite the win that they need, and I think we understand the context of it, but they're making incremental improvements and steps under Philippe Clement. Hopefully that process can continue now over the festive period. Southampton, then Preston to come. 2 really tricky games. Norwich City just need to keep themselves ticking over. Pinkin.com, the place to go. Philippe Clement's reaction is on our YouTube channel, and we will see you all again at Carrow Road on Saturday for the early kickoff. See you there.